Hello team! So in this lesson of the exam techniques module, we're going through how to approach past papers and use the mark schemes so you can get the most bang for your buck from them and, get awesome results. So the aims of this lesson are to get the most out of past papers and mark schemes, and I'm going to give you a step-by-step method of what you should do at the end of a paper. So in the previous lesson, we learned about the different types of questions. Now in this lesson, I'm going to show you a 5-step process of what you should be doing at the end of every paper. So when should you be doing a past paper? Well, once you've finished all of the topics. Now don't do them too early. Lots of people start looking at past papers early. They haven't read the content. It confuses them. It makes them think they won't ever be able to achieve it. It's not a good place to be. Now, past papers can be done multiple times. Just make sure they're weeks apart rather than days apart. Otherwise, you're just literally memorizing the answers rather than actually doing the past paper. And it's important to try and find up-to-date past papers. Now, I know that the syllabuses change constantly. The content does change. And if that is the case, you may have to go into a past paper from previous years and only do the questions which are actually in your specification. So if you can't answer it, I remember doing this myself because I was one of the guinea pigs when I was doing it 10 years ago. And I would do a past paper, and if I didn't know the answer, I'd do the mark next to it, I'd come back to it, I still wouldn't know it. And then I'd find out that actually that's not in my specification anymore, and it's not the end of the world. You've still answered most of the questions that are in the specification. All it does do is it kind of messes up your timing a little bit, but it's better than nothing. So if you're just switching your specification, then make sure that you are using other past papers too, but just try and use the ones that are most up to date. So when you're attempting it, you need to set aside the designated amount of time. And you have to do it in perfect exam conditions. So I'm hoping that you have your phone on airplane mode or turned off when you're studying anyway by now. But if you're not, make sure your phone's away. Have no distractions. Have no notifications coming up on your computer. Have your computer turned off, actually, if you can just do the past paper, print it out. And use the techniques I've shown you. Now, for me, I couldn't print out all the papers, right? There was loads. So what I did have is my computer on, but only on the past paper, and I'd answer on just plain paper and mark from there, which you guys can use if you don't have a printer or you don't want to print off loads and loads of pages. Now, remember, like I was saying, you can't totally replicate an exam because you won't have the same nerves as you have when you're doing a real exam because it doesn't count for anything. It's like that penalty analogy I was telling you about. Taking a penalty in a tournament is not the same as practicing in training. But you want to get it as close to it as possible. So like I said, don't have any distractions. Don't let people come into your room. Just sit down with the timer and make the timer like something you can see, a clock or a watch near you. Just because that's what you'll be having in the exam. You'll see a clock. And you need to be reading that and seeing where you are in the exam in terms of time. And you need to be constantly monitoring your marks a minute. So these are the things I want to do when you get to the end of a paper. And it's a 5-step process. And we do it in order of priority, where you can get the most marks for the amount of time left. Because you might not be able to get through all 5 stages, but it's important you do try. So you get to the end of the paper, you don't just sit back and relax. First thing you need to do is skim through every page. Just make sure you've not missed anything out. The worst thing you can do is if you accidentally turn 2 pages over and you miss a whole couple of pages out. Can you imagine? Or you don't get the back page. I know people who've missed out entire back pages. Look at every page and just make sure you've answered it. Really make sure, count the questions, 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure that you've answered everything. You've not missed any pages out. Next, you then review the questions which you felt you needed more time. So you've probably got some preliminary work there, but you just need a bit more time to work it out. So get to those because you probably will get full marks if you just spend the time on it, right? Then you review the questions which you had no idea and do it quickly because you probably either now know it or you still don't know it. And like I said, you probably have written an educated guess. if you go back to it, sometimes when you've been reading all the other questions and you've been answering other questions, it brings memories back into your head. So sometimes you do know the answer. And I've even known exams which give you the answer in another question, which is really stupid, but it does happen. And so just have a look at it quickly, see if you can answer it. If not, move on to step 4, which is where you review all the questions which you wanted to double check. Now you might think, now I'm done, you've done all the questions. No. When you've got time in an exam, never just waste it sitting there relaxed. You might as well just keep going through it, do everything you can possible. So once you've done all of those 4 stages, then go to step 5, which is just going through every question from the start. And just make sure you've read the question properly. Make sure you've got enough points for the number of marks that they're offering, and you're grand. The reason you want to just do that is because if you're just sitting there doing nothing, I guarantee when you leave, you will think of something. Oh, I wish I had checked that. I wish I did this. Don't go changing all your answers. Usually your first attempt is good as gold. So that's what you do when you get to the end. Now, I want you to be doing that when you do the past papers. It's a practice run for when you do the real thing. Yeah. So just keep going until you get to the end of the time slot, or you finished all 5 points and now there's nothing to do. You've done everything. Then you can finish early. Then use the mark scheme, and you really shouldn't brush over this. Lots of people just tick and they don't really read it. They just look, see, yeah, that was about right, tick. You need to analyze the answers, see where every single mark comes from. So say you've got a 6-mark question, see all the different points you could have written to get those marks. And just remember them, because the same sort of topics come up every year in these exams. So just make sure you're learning these points that give you the marks. And don't give yourself benefit of the doubt. So if you thought, oh yeah, I did mean that, but I didn't write it. No, that's not a mark, because you may not have got that in the exam. You want to do it without a shadow of a doubt that the examiner will give it to you. Yeah, you don't want to be blaming the examiner for not giving it to you, even if that's what you meant. You want to take the responsibility on yourself. And then if you guess an answer wrong, find out why you were wrong. Did you write absolutely the wrong content? Were you totally off? Did you not know the stuff, or did you misinterpret the question? Did you not know how many marks were given? Really, try and self-diagnose why you didn't get the full marks, because that's how you start improving exams. So that's really what I want you to be doing when you do these past papers. Do it once you've done all the topics. Do it in exam conditions, like I've said, and do the 5-step process once you finish the exam. And really at the end, when you're using the mark scheme, really analyze things. Don't just waste these mark schemes. They're really, really important tools you can learn so much from them, actually, because you can see exactly what they want for you to write to get the marks. Okay, so get on it, guys. I want you to be using the past papers once you finish the topics, and use all these techniques I've shown you to really maximize your marks when you're doing them. All right. Any questions you might have, remember to pop over to the mastermind group and ask them. I'll be answering questions daily. And yeah, till next time, guys. Catch you in the next one.